Strange things are happening in the Chesapeake Bay. Blue crabs are disappearing, dead zones are threatening the fish, watermen are losing their way of life, and it all has to do with something in the water. Planet H2O decided to take a look.
This is not your typical summer camp. It may look like it's all about having fun and trapping crabs for their dinner, but the kids are really here to learn about the problems facing the Chesapeake Bay and the people and wildlife who depend on it.
What do you know about crabs?
You gotta smell it.
They're scavengers. They gotta be able to smell the goods.
I'm on this trip because I love the bay, and I'm really dedicated to saving the bay because it's in a lot of trouble.
The Chesapeake Bay watershed reaches all the way up into New York and is over 6 states. It's an incredibly large area, and about 16 or 17 million people live within it.
It's also one of the most polluted watersheds in the U.S.
Everyone's responsible for producing pollution that comes into the bay, from just the fertilizer that people put on their lawns to huge factories who produce tons of smog.
The biggest pollution problem all over the U.S. is non-point source. That's pollution from the people. Chemicals and fertilizers we put on the grass, animal waste, even car exhaust. Everything we put on the ground or into the air ends up in our waterways every time it rains.
Pollution is basically the biggest problem that the bay faces, and most people, if you ask them, they'll tell you that it's garbage that's polluting the bay, but that's not really that big of a problem, even though it does factor in. Mostly what you've got is the nutrients, which an excess of them that come from fertilizers that run into the bay.
Fertilizer runoff from lawns and farms can cause algae in the Chesapeake Bay to grow like crazy and choke off other forms of life, including plants, fish, and crabs.
The underwater plants can't grow as well, so that creates a lack of dissolved oxygen in the water, and the fish can't breathe as well. There are quite a few dead zones, mostly in the upper Chesapeake, where fish can't really live because there's not enough oxygen in the water.
Crabs eat fish, so if the fish are dying off, then the crabs are in trouble too. That's a big problem for the watermen families of Tangier Island, who depend on crabs for their livelihood. The kids get some hands-on lessons about life on the bay.
A lot of people, when they buy their seafood, they don't really think about all the work that took into bringing it to their table.
It's a hard life because they wake up at around 4:30 and they have a lot of work to do. It takes hours to do it. So you pretty much gotta keep up the labor, and it's sort of like a family thing.
Everybody's close. I mean, everybody knows everybody. You're willing to help anybody out.
How long have you lived here?
All my life.
All your life? So.
The waterman's way of life is dying out pretty quickly.
There's been changes.
As there's more development in the watershed area, there's a lot of pollution in the bay, and it makes it really hard to find crabs.
The blue crab situation is an example of how things are getting to a point where we need to do things to help solve that situation.
Alicia Young-Williams is part of a team of scientists in Maryland that is trying to help the blue crabs survive despite the environmental stresses they face.
The population of blue crabs in Chesapeake Bay have declined by more than 80% in the last 15 years for a variety of reasons. Fishing levels have increased. Water quality has declined due to runoff from land surrounding Chesapeake Bay. We're trying to understand how we can restore an ecological balance of blue crab populations in the bay and help sustain fishery.
To do this, the scientists are raising blue crabs by the tens of thousands at this high-tech hatchery in Baltimore.
This is a first stage of the maternity ward at our crab facility. These crabs are taken from the wild, from watermen. This is her egg mass. You can take the eggs off and they'll hatch without her. But in the wild, they need to be protected or a fish is gonna come by and eat them.
At about 2 months of age, the baby crabs are taken to Alicia's lab.
And we end up having nightmares where there are hundreds of crabs everywhere and everyone's stepping on them and we have to rescue them.
Come here, I'm not gonna hurt you. Crabby!
They're tagged with a colored dye so that the scientists can keep track of them out in the wild.
And that, over time, is going to harden into something that's very pliable and plastic and soft, and so that dye stays with him, theoretically, for his entire life. However, as they get older, as they get bigger, the shell becomes more and more opaque, so we can't really see that brightly colored elastome anymore. So we have a backup tag that we use. And it's a tiny sliver of wire, and we use this machine to shoot it through this needle and into crab. They're about 0.5 millimeter long, so they don't hurt the crab. Once those tags are inside the crab's body, we can use this wand. If a crab beeps, it's ours. If not, it was a wild crab that was already there. We've done lots of experiments to show that it doesn't hurt them any when we do this.
Once the crabs are tagged, it's time to take them to their new home, a protected cove in the Chesapeake Bay.
The crabs face several challenges because they've been raised in an artificial environment. They're a bit naive. They don't realize that there are actual predators out there. They take maybe a day or two longer to figure out that they need to bury and hide.
36, male.
It's a lot of work. It's very labor intensive, but it's very rewarding. We can say, yeah, these are ours. We put them here.
On average, we've doubled the population of wild crabs that are out there by adding juvenile crabs from the hatchery. So it's been quite successful and promising, but we're not quite there to determine that it's ultimately the final answer.
Blue crabs are just one part of the intricate web of life in the Chesapeake Bay, and increasing their numbers doesn't solve the bay's problems or even ensure the crabs' long-term survival. The only real solution here is for everyone in the watershed to make an effort to reduce pollution.
As their adventure comes to a close, the kids have decided to take an active role in getting that message out.
Everywhere around the bay, everything that happens near its tributaries and near the actual bay affects the bay. There's actually a lot that you can do as an individual to help protect the bay.
The first thing that people can do is to raise awareness about all of these problems, because if people don't know, it's like a different world to them.
I would say that you should come out here to the bay because it's a beautiful place, and as soon as you get here, you'll realize that it's worth saving.
Because once people know, they're a lot more interested in helping. It's just been so inspiring to actually do something rather than just sitting at home during the summer.
Hey guys!